More than a slight leak, and you saw that gigantic oil slick that was out there. Good morning, everybody. It is 8:53 as we welcome Rebel to our desk, a good friend here. It's time for All American Exteriors to talk a little home improvement.
Speaking of leaks, you don't want them.
Yeah,
No, leaks are bad stuff. Water damage is what I'm talking about this morning. I've got some pictures here this morning of 3 different places where competitors have been out and where people have went with possibly the low bid and improper construction was done.
What are we looking at here?
That is where when you have your siding installed, and you said it's a brick house, so they just had that area soffit and fascia. We went out to put on gutters, and the gutters wouldn't stay on the house. The reason the gutters had come off, they thought was ice damming, which brought it down, but the main problem is the wood was all rotted out because they done what's called a tuck, which is where they took the metal up, but the metal should have went all the way up to the other brown metal at the very top edge and tucked in underneath that, so that way it's waterproof. And so what happened was it looked like it was protected, but a very important part of the home was not protected at all. They paid for that.
So what had to be done in this case? Did you have to rip all that wood out?
We had to take the metal off, rip the wood out, put new wood back, and then put new metal back on before we
and they still have the Christmas lights up. But this
not
is
exactly what you want to hear.
This kind of ties in because it's Severe Weather Awareness Week in Iowa. We're getting to the season where we start getting heavy rain, we start getting high winds, and you want to get this stuff fixed, you know.
Right. Well, it's important because there's so many. This is a time where we get bombarded with these type of calls because, like you say, people need it, and so they become more aware of the rainy season with it leaking and have you, and so you want to make sure that it's being done properly. And you know, I mean, it's not uncommon for me to talk to somebody and they say, "Oh, that's not proper," and I'm like, "No," and they're like, "Well, that's the way everybody said to do it," and I'm like, "No, you've got to take that gutter off, get that metal up underneath so that it's tucked completely." And so that was primarily what that picture was. It was just showing the water gets in behind and you just don't see it. And so the wood starts to decay and rot away, and by the time you realize it, it's too late. And now you're looking at a very expensive, you know, I'm sure that repair probably cost as much as it did their first time to have it done, but it was already paid for once, you know.
Right. You don't want to pay for it twice.
All right,
It's disheartening. I hate to see it, you know, when you go out because, well, that particular instance, you know, the lady was a widow and her husband was trying to take and tighten things up before he passed away because he knew he was passing and he got taken advantage of, and then here we are, you know, that's like 8 years later, and she's on a fixed income and finding herself having to pay all that extra money.
Wow. Okay, what else do we have? Another photo here?
So this morning.
Okay. Yes, we didn't. Okay, anyways.
That's basically it. I had 3 pictures showing similar things.
Oh, here we
There
go.
we go. That's what I'm talking about.
Right, that right there is on roofing. It's showing that they never got flashing on the roofing, and the water starts getting into the wall system there. You can see it's bubbled a little bit right at the gutter.
So right where the shingles meet the siding there should be...
That siding should never be down on top of touching the shingles.
There should be a flashing there?
There should be flashing in behind. The siding should be 3/8 to a ½ inch up off of that shingle so that way water goes down, dries out, and the gutter is tight to the house there. You can see the siding's actually swelled out over the edge of the gutter. That's because it's drinking water. You open that up and that's all rotted out in there.
Now, should that be caulked also in that area, or should you leave it open so it dries,
I'm not. I don't believe in that. Because that water gets in. Caulk fails, water gets in. The gutter should actually be back away from the house, and then 1 row up on the shingles, you should put a piece of aluminum flashing that sticks up. It's called a diverter, and it just diverts that water over from that edge. So the only water that's going to get there is just a little bit, because you're only talking a small area.
Okay.
And that way, you leave that gutter away, and the air can get in, it can dry it, and it won't cause rot later.
Okay. Good thing to remember.
And so that's the main thing I wanted to talk about today was you know, the difference between the somebody that's a professional and actually, you know, schools themselves on all the proper aspects of making your house watertight.
And how can we check that? Is there a time where you can come out, if you had something done in the past, you say, I might be a little iffy on whether or not these people did it the right way. Will you come out and take a look at somebody's stuff?
Absolutely. We'll come out and take a look at it and let you know if there's water in. I mean, it's not uncommon at all. I sold a job just yesterday, and you know, I told him, I said, you're going to have quite a bit of rot in underneath. The house was built in '88. And I said, I doubt that there's there's any house wrap on it, even though we knew you should put it on. Code didn't require it back then. And so when you start to see your house buckling, you know, the old LP or that type of siding, you start to see that. A lot of times there's not wrap underneath it. And he said, yeah, I've repaired a couple boards, and you're right, there isn't anything underneath there. And so you can see underneath the windows and stuff where water has a tendency to get in. When the caulk fails, you know, it rots out. You can see that window's rotted down below.
Right, where the gutter is, yeah.
That's another instance where the gutter's been installed too tight to the house, and the flashings can't work properly, and the water's just funneling right in. And so once we open that area up, what we find is it's all rotted out, and you've actually got to cut plumb down to the framing of the house.
Wow.
And repair, build your way back out.
Are they going to need a new window in that instance?
You know, and that one right there, we did put a new window in, but it was because the window was a crappy window anyway.
Might as well while you're doing the work on it anyway.
We did all the windows
Hey, well,
that was on the north of the house.
You have something going on this weekend. Want to let people know about you're offering up some goodies.
Yeah. Iowa Wild Hockey has a mini home show, and it's a home improvement. And so we're giving away 23 tickets to the Iowa Wild this weekend, and love for you to come down to the showroom and pick them up. And
There you go.
Go to our Facebook page, get signed up for those. We'll pick some winners, and we'll get in contact with Rebel, let you know how to get your tickets.
Absolutely.
Be perfect. But you'll be at the home show, the mini home show at the game
the
this
mini home
weekend.
show, right.
And he doesn't go to these things. He doesn't go to home shows.
I normally don't do the home shows, but this one here, I say they serve beer. So
They serve beer, and there's going to be fights. So and a hockey game might break out.
How can you? You can't go wrong.
That's why I do this show. Occasionally there's beer. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here. I know how you feel.
Wonderful. Great job.